it's my 7th favorite day of the week, it is quickly improving because it's a time together with the fellas in studio, and I can't thank all of our friends enough for taking the time, and they would be Bobby and Steve and Mark. This is the SHOPO Hour. And I'll go around the table once again. Start with you, Bobby, if you wouldn't mind. Once again, introduction and good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Rick. Thanks again for having us on. We look forward to being on this hour, I think, every week.
Mm-hmm.
But Bobby Cavaco, president of SHOPO, 22 years in the department, assigned to traffic, and it's going on my 20th year in SHOPO as a union official.
I love seeing you boys in the morning, man. We guys walk through the door, it's like, okay, the day's better already. So thanks for that.
Absolutely.
Bobby, very much. All right, brother.
There he is. Morning, Rick.
Morning.
Happy and grateful to be here. Good morning, Bobby. Good morning, Mark. Steve Keogh, currently the vice president for SHOPO at the state level. I work for Honolulu PD. I've been with the department for 15 years. I'm a patrol sergeant right here in urban Honolulu, which encompasses the area of Ala Moana, Kaka'ako, Chinatown, and the mountain.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Got you. Welcome back.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Brother Mark.
Morning, Rick. Bobby, Steve. Good to be back from a little hiatus. From last week. But anyway, retired HBD major, 31 and a half years of service. My last command, Waikiki.
You know what, gentlemen? I open up the phone lines right now at 521-8383. Although it's a SHOPO hour, it flies by. And so I want our listeners to have a chance to call in on any topic, any issue that you would like, because the gentleman in studio, transparent. Anything and everything, and you will get an answer. It will be addressed, whatever Q&A that you engage in. I'd like to start off with some recent news, if that's all right, and then we can direct ourselves in other directions. I was a little miffed and confused how Kauai deputy chief can have a firearm and have it discovered by TSA. It was just a strange story of how that transpired. Bobby, you mind starting off with this and bringing us up to speed?
Yeah, well, through the media reports, we learned that the Kauai deputy chief, who's the number 2 in command, right below Chief Raybuck, carried his department-issued firearm in his backpack through TSA. And the excuse that he gave was that he, quote, forgot. This is somebody that has 35 years in law enforcement experience. Each and every one of us that's a law enforcement officer knows where our firearm is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and especially when we go traveling, we know where those firearms are left before we leave the island. And where we were appalled was that he's not on restricted duty.
He's not.
He's not. So he's back to work. He's as normal.
Like nothing happened.
Like nothing happened. And if it was one of us or one of our members or one of our officers that, did this, we would obviously be on restricted duty, gun and badge taken away. We'd be on a desk position pending the investigation.
I don't know. Like I said, I was confused when I saw this story about how this could happen, because either, as you mentioned, you as officers, citizens, man, you got hell to pay for that.
Absolutely. You also be brought up on criminal charges, face a civil fine, which starts at $2,000, and I believe it can go up to $10,000.
Yeah.
But he wasn't arrested. He wasn't cited, and he wasn't even detained. In fact, we're finding out that the TSA did not even follow the normal procedure of calling 911 and reporting it. They handed over the firearm to the chief directly. So our members are asking, where's the accountability? We're being held to this high standard, but the administrators, in this particular department, just because of their rank, are being treated differently, and we have an issue with that.
What would be the authoritative voice or role? Is it the mayor? Is it that would pursue or maybe gave a skid for this?
Well, it would be the HR that would be in charge of the investigation, but the chief, being number one, the direct supervisor, should be leading the investigation, even though, this deputy chief is his number two person. And of course, the mayor should also be inquiring on what the status is.
Absolutely. Steve, your take?
Clearly, this has the appearance, because of his position with Kauai PD and with his status level, his rank in the department, that he's clearly being given some type of preferential treatment, right? Mm-hmm. And let's just be real clear to everybody out there, Rick. There's certain things in law enforcement you just can't do. And one of them is forget that you have your firearm somewhere, right? It opens the door. How's this? Without a filter, it opens the door to ask a lot more questions like, what is this gentleman really all about? You bring a gun to the airport, you say you forgot that it was in there. There's just certain things you can't do. And then again, from the union standpoint, like Bobby alluded to, if any one of our members did that, they would absolutely be held to a different standard than what the deputy chief is being held to. And I think that's the issue we have. Again, people are human, they make mistakes. But in our profession, there's just some things you can't do. And it's like attention to detail. I mean, do you pack your bag and, I don't know, maybe you forget your toothbrush, but how do you forget your gun is in your bag?
Right.
Yeah. You forget your shaving cream, forget your toothpaste, I don't know. But, surprise, you go roll through TSA and, I just happened to forget that I have my gun in my bag. Well, it's an oversight that really shouldn't be happening. I'm not trying to be sarcastic, but there's the appearance that he's being treated differently than other officers of a lower rank would be treated. And it questions, you're the number two in the department. There's certain things you just can't do. Yeah, so that's my take on it.
Well, thank goodness I don't shave and I don't brush my teeth, so I never have to worry about any of that. But, Brother Mark, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, how do you not know where your firearm is? Give me a break. 35 years in law enforcement, like Bobby said. All of us know where that thing is. You better. And if you didn't know where it was, we got a problem. Yeah. Right? Number two, this is where the rank and file gets frustrated because they're treated differently. There's policy in place for everyone, not just your footmen or your motormen. The policy in place is from the chief on down or from your recruit on up, right? So this is where they're frustrated. This is where they get that disconnect with
management,
with the command and management, right? So,
and it just casts aspersion further, especially for the public. I'd be interested. We have friends that listen in on Kauai. Is this a story? Are the citizens of Kauai, are you concerned about this? Is it on the radar? If it is, or if not, for whatever reason, give us a call. I think we'd like to hear from you at 521-8383 and give us a call. We have so much to get to, which includes primetime traffic and a little bit more. I'll jump over to Steve for any information where people can follow and learn more about SHOPO and members.
Oh, sure, Rick. So we are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We're currently revamping our website, but you can reach us currently at shopohawaii.org. We have a temporary platform in place that would actually route you to the other, it would actually route you to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter from that page. Again, shopohawaii.org.
I'll tell you what, we got a lot on the agenda for today, as always, the SHOPO Hour. It most certainly is the SHOPO Hour here on News Radio 830 KHVH. You can go to our website, khvhradio.com, and you'll find podcasts of our broadcasts here on the SHOPO Hour that you can revisit. This one will appear later on today with Bobby, Steve, and Mark. We shared a story on Kauai of what is perceived to be preferential treatment. How and why can this happen? Here at home, here on Oahu, State Representative Sharon Har, this story has been permeating the news because there's a similar tack involved. I'll go to Steve. If you would set the table and bring Bobby and Mark in on this particular story that has some parallels to the one we just shared.
Sure, not a problem, Rick. So actually, if it's okay with you, Rick, I might defer to Bobby on the backstory on that, and then
sure.
I'll jump in just because I know he's a little bit more familiar with the specifics.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Rick. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
So Representative Har had got, arrested for DUI. She was going down the wrong way on a one-way street. And clearly through the body cam footage that she, appeared to be impaired. She stated that she was drinking codeine and alcohol mixed in, together. Of course, it went to court, and then the judge threw it out, and she wasn't convicted. But when the panel on the legislature, the special committee that reviewed her case, decided that there was no discipline, and the only thing that they wanted to know was to have her inform the committee an update on what the status of her driver's license was. Can you imagine that?
And by the way, this was during COVID.
Yes.
And this was where, weren't there restrictions in place about gatherings, etc.? And she was at an event with several people, not really. Anyway, that's a sidebar.
I don't know what having a driver's license has to do with being a state legislature. Like for us, we require a driver's license for our job, right? It's a condition of employment because
right,
you need to drive a vehicle around. But to be in the state legislature, I don't know if you need a requirement for a driver's license. So I don't understand why that is such an importance to the committee.
That's the bottom line of politicians taking care of each other. We see it all the time. And, what this is not surprising to me, the way they're taking care of her. Let's face it. The judge threw it out. There was enough evidence. We had plenty of evidence against her. But it was a judge's decision to throw it out. Were they all in it together, right? And, people don't know that. She was nasty at the scene. The stuff she was saying at the scene, Black Lives Matter and all this crap. She was nasty at the scene because we have body cam to prove it, right? And it was out there. So for them not to sanction her, shame on the legislature. But, they're all in it together. They all take care of each other. And, people got to start voting differently. Get these people out of there.
Yeah, her conduct as an elected official towards the officers at the scene is pretty apprehensible. You could tell she was impaired based upon the conduct that you saw on the body cam footage. And what hits home to me is you have these legislators that are so quick to try to scrutinize the men and women that put the uniform on every day and want to put all these systems in place for accountability and whatnot. And then when something goes down where these elected officials need to be held accountable, it doesn't happen. Look, people make mistakes, right, Rick? Things happen, okay? Bad choices are made. But there needs to be some level of accountability. And as Mark alluded to, if they dumped her case on the criminal side, where are the rest of the legislators, in a way, policing their own and at least holding her accountable and holding her accountable that her conduct needs to be better than that, right? She has a title, and there should be some type of appreciation for that title. And her conduct towards officers, she never made an apology to our officers for her conduct. Never did. She was unapologetic, berating them at the scene. And then, again, even if the courts decide they're not going to do anything on the criminal side, you would think that our elected officials would do the right thing and police their own in a way and hold her accountable for her conduct.
And there we are on this story. Thank you for the insight and the details. Headphones, please, because I want to go to our calls at 521-8383. It is the SHOPO Hour with Bobby, Steve, and Mark. And right now I want to head out to Kauai. And Alan joins us. Alan, thank you for the call. You're on with the SHOPO Hour. Good morning.
Hey, good morning to you, Rick, and the SHOPO folks. I have a comment about the problem with the officer having mistakenly carried his weapon where it shouldn't be. And I know about this because I was born and raised on this island. I know people that have early dementia, and at Wilcox Hospital here in Kauai, they just have a brand new representative who works on dementia at a better level. And what I'm thinking about is if the officer were to be examined and were to find out that he does have indeed early dementia, and he could have then forgotten that he was not supposed to have his weapon, then I would say that having proven by medical reason that he has dementia, he should be released from the force, but he should not be fined. I think the fining is more like not proper for a dementia case. What do you say?
Alan, thank you very much for taking the time today. Bobby, your thoughts on Alan's comments?
Well, Alan, thank you for calling in and sharing your comments with us. We absolutely support what you're saying. That just gives us justification that he should be on restricted duty to find out where his mental capacity is, where he's at, to forget where your firearm is. So I absolutely see what you're saying as far as dementia. Well, if that's a possibility, then that even makes the case stronger for him to be on restricted duty. Assign him to the desk. If that's what the situation is, then go ahead and do a fit-for-duty evaluation.
Do fit-for-duty evaluations occur often?
Yes, they do.
They do?
Yeah, in our department in Honolulu, yes. And I believe all 4 departments we have, some cases. I mean, it's not where it's, we have 10, 20 officers in that category, but they do come up from time to time, with the emotional state of mind that our officers go through every day, the ups and the downs, the things that you see, the traffic collisions where, you see gruesome things. You deal with the general public on a daily basis, so that that emotional up and down, like I'm talking about, it plays on you,
I'll tell you what, I empathize with what you just said about what the mental impact is. I'm contemplating the Makaha story with a 19-year-old son beating his mother, and the officers that responded and had to intervene in this story, and the tragic condition that all of this, it has to have impact. Mark?
Yeah, so a fit for duty is not a bad thing. So I know some officers say, fit for duty, but fit for duty, you are going to be placed on restricted duty. But it's not a bad thing. It's, to get you back to, maybe you'll need to talk to a psychologist or go talk to somebody on your own. But it was something that through the investigation will bring out that maybe you need some help to get you back on track. But it's not a bad thing.
And when you think of a situation like this, I don't know about you boys, but when I heard this article, my first inner conversation with myself was, what was he thinking? Right? How does this happen, and what was he thinking? And dementia is a very serious disease. We don't want to make light of that, but in a situation like this, I think it would certainly call for a deeper review to make sure, to the caller's point, that everything cognitively is where it needs to be for somebody in his position.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would imagine all 3 of you fellas know exactly where your service firearm is.
Oh, absolutely.
Just do. Like
and
that.
most officers have more than one firearm, whether it's a long gun or a handgun. So, yeah.
And I'll touch really quick upon we were talking about our mental state of mind and the stuff that our officers see on a daily basis. In 2006, there was a horrific traffic accident on the H1, and I don't know if you remember, but it's 16 years ago. But 2 vehicles were racing on the H1 in the early morning hours and rear-ended a safety systems vehicle, killing the worker, and 4 people died in that. They all burned to death. And I was first on scene with that, and to this day, I have memories of that. Just to walk up to the vehicles and the hair on your arm singeing from 100 feet away, and not being able to help the occupants of that vehicle. You can hear them screaming, and they're burning, and with the smell and all of that stuff. So when you experience that situation, as you go on in life, when certain things, when either you get that same smell or you go to a similar call that's in nature, that incident
You're
always
back.
gets brought back, no matter how often you talk about it, or so I wanted to touch upon that.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you so much. Goodness, fellas, it is the SHOPO hour, and we're going to make this a 7-hour program. I'm just going to keep you here all day, all night. Thoroughly appreciate all the time from Bobby, from Steve, from Mark for being in our studio, taking your telephone calls. Let's break for the bottom of the hour news. When we come back, how many arrests have to be made before somebody gets convicted and put behind bars? We'll try and figure that out. Stay with us.
Now,
Welcome back once again. It is the SHOPO Hour here on News Radio 830 KHVH. Much appreciation for Bobby, Steve, and Mark taking the time to be with you. And if you'd like to join us, 521-8383. I had made a comment at the bottom before the bottom of the hour news. I had read a news report that takes us to April 20th. 54 times arrested. The individual may get a sentence. No guarantees, may. But, Steve, you were talking earlier, 54? Pshaw.
Right. It's going to sound shocking, Rick, but yeah, when you said 54, I said 54. How about 154? How about 120? We had a case last week, if I can share with your listening audience. Mm-hmm. So dispatch relays to officers working urban Honolulu patrol that a female put a phone call into us saying, "Hey, I live over on Kinau, and I'm at the condo, and my brother, who's been to prison on multiple times and I know shouldn't have a gun, has a big .44 Magnum gun while he's sitting in the kitchen area." So we proceed to that case. We do what we do safely and effectively. We detain the male, and come to find out, this male, after a consensual search, we did turn up that .44 Magnum. So the sister was keeping it real with that big elephant gun. Okay,
Big.
This individual that was taken into custody, this guy had 81 prior arrests, okay? But he had 8 felony convictions. Not arrests, 8 felony convictions, okay? He was in his mid-50s. He lived a hard life, you can tell. This guy was mid-50s, looking like he was, early 80s.
Yeah.
Long story short, Rick, we were able to take him into custody for felon in possession of a firearm. Not supposed to have that. B felony, carries a 10-year stint. Thanks to some great work by the detective assigned to that case, Paul Wood, and his relationship with the prosecutor's office, they decided to go ahead and charge him. So he will face some accountability for that. But like I was telling you, we have individuals in the community that have not 5, 6, 7, 10 arrests. You're talking in over 100. And then they have 8 felony convictions. That made me in law enforcement pause, because when you have 8 felony convictions, the lowest felony in our state is supposed to be could be up to a 5-year sentence. So let's just put this in perspective. Mm-hmm. He's got 8 convictions. I don't know whether it's A, B, or C, right? But even if it's at the C level, 8 times 5 is 40. So in theory, this guy could have gotten 40 years in prison, and he's
Sitting
in an apartment
Yeah.
over on Kinau Street with a .44 Magnum. And fortunately, family stepped up, called us, we handled it, and we got a bad guy off the street and a .44 Magnum off the street. Yeah,
Brother Mark.
It's something we see time and time and time again. Over 31 and a half years, 40 priors, 30 priors, 20 priors, 50 priors, 100 priors, warrants, right? They're not showing up to court, but they go to court on the warrants, judges release them, right? We don't need bail reform, because the judges and prosecutors and the legislators, they're doing it already. They're letting these guys out. It's ridiculous what these guys are doing out there. And then gun laws? What gun laws? This guy's, how the gun law is going to help your regular citizens out there. This guy's a convicted felon, not supposed to have a gun. So gun laws don't apply to him, right? He's going to do whatever he wants. Again, the legislatures And all these people out there, these politicians, better start thinking of the victims. Never mind thinking of the perpetrators.
And think of the law-abiding citizen.
Yes.
Because there's the Supreme Court is poised with the Young case that, with the composition of the court and the arguments of the precedent, that is a very good chance that it will move forward and the carry conceal will be verified by the Supreme Court. But then it gets back into the community, state legislature, and things of that nature, and heaven knows what's going to take place there. But that's a point well taken, without a doubt. Bobby, thoughts before we move on to other topics?
No, I think Steve and Mark touched it, but I was, just popped in my mind about the judges and when the case is put before them, what is their, foundation for giving out the sentences and how long that they're going to serve in prison, or, so that's kind of like my thought, like, where are we with the judges?
And if I can just remind the listening audience,
please,
not to go down a rabbit hole with guns and whatnot, but bad guys will get access to guns. This case indicates that. There was an 8-time convicted felon with over 81 arrests, and he's in urban Honolulu with a .44 Magnum. Okay? I'm not trying to be dramatic. I'm just stating the facts. I can tell you, as law enforcement, as a patrol supervisor, I'm totally fine with law-abiding citizens owning firearms and taking their personal protection into their own hands. Because when we talk about gun control and other things, the bad guys are still going to keep the guns. All you do is take the guns away from the good people that have every right to protect themselves. Because in this case, I'm sure the people that lived over there had no idea who they were living next to. Can you imagine the shock when the neighbors saw us take that guy out? So.
First of all, amen.
Yeah.
That's been a consistent theme on this program for almost 30 years.
Good.
And that is the disempowering of the law-abiding, and the criminal will always be armed to their own satisfaction. We're at 7:44 in the morning. I would like to bring up a news story that appeared, and this appeared April 23rd. 2 HPD officers arrested for domestic violence cases, 1 not charged. This is a news story and a headline. I'd love to get your take. And what should the public know when they read stories such as these?
Well, we've, in the Honolulu Police Department, we've had our share of officers, getting arrested or investigated for domestic violence. And from a union standpoint, we're always concerned about it. And, for us, we want to make sure that the officer is afforded their due process, just like any other citizen, and that the department will investigate fairly. Right.
And Bobby, to your point, speaking of fairness, the officers that were arrested on possible allegations of abuse, right, were arrested by HPD officers. So right there, you see that in this department, we want to do the right thing. We didn't protect our own in that case. There was a probable cause to make an arrest. Now, whether they get charged or whatever, that's not on us. It's just initially, HPD took 2 of their own into custody, right, for possible criminal offenses. So I think, to your point, when the public reads something like this, they can at least clearly understand that HPD will do what it needs to do, regardless if it's one of our own or not. And fairness, integrity, it's there. Because those individuals were arrested by officers that wear the same uniform they do. And I think it sends a powerful statement to the community that we're going to do the right thing. And these officers will get on the administrative side as a union. We will come in and make sure that if they receive any administrative discipline, that it's appropriate and fair, and that the collective bargaining is followed 100%.
I want to give Mark's take before we take a phone call at 521-8383. Mark?
Yeah, so like Steve said, HPD does a really, really good job in policing our own. We really do, regardless of what the civil beats and all those people are saying about us and some politicians, voicing their opinion. We really, really do, us. One guy does something, it's the whole department doing something, not that individual person. So our department, our officers, even our professional standards office, we do a good job policing our own. One of the problems I have with the article is, especially with civil beat. Okay, 2 police officers hooked up for abuse, not convicted. They're just arrested. So what about attorneys? What about doctors? What about other professions? How come you don't cover that? Right? Why? Because it makes really good news, right? That's the problem I have, right? Don't be pouncing on us, right? Pounce on everybody the same way. So,
but it would fall into that higher standard category. And when there are stories, so for instance, the Sharon Har story, I think it could have been more thorough and more revealing and more insightful. Not editorializing, but with the facts. I never read a word about her beratement of officers at the scene. But why would that not be part of the story? Because that fills the story. But understand.
Yep.
Understand what you said. Let's take a call before the break. I got a break that's coming up. It's actually here, but I want to make sure that we have time for Rita out in Mililani. It's 7:48 in the morning. Rita, thank you for your call. You're on with the fellas from SHOPO.
Well, thank you folks so much. Rick, when you first announced you were going to have SHOPO on every Monday morning at 7, I thought, good grief, why? Let me tell you, it is a great platform for all of you. If it wasn't for this show a couple of weeks ago, HB 1567, the bail revision, I would have had no idea what it was. I went on, I pulled the bill, looked at the testimonies, and when you look at the testimonies, it sounds very compassionate, very caring. But then I thought, where were the voices for the victims, for the stores, for the mom and pops, the small chains, the big, everybody in between? Where were the voices for them? They are the victims. And as that, I believe it's Tina Yamaki, president of that organization, who kind of represented all those retailers. The offenders are caught, released, and we'll be back in our stores stealing once again within hours. There is no consequence to those offenders. I don't want to be another San Francisco. I don't want Hawaii to become another Los Angeles. I think this is and only 5 representatives voted against it. Absolutely no senators voted against it. Where were the voices for the victims? And I know on the SHOPO you had down, it is not coincidence that we often hear reports in the media that a person with an extensive rap sheet has been arrested again without being locked up. And our citizens, yes, that would be me, are shocked to find out that they are getting out without bail and just, I suppose, with a slap on the hand. I appreciate what you folks do. Every time I see a police officer, I always thank them for what they are doing, and I pray for them every morning. And Rick, thank you for this platform for them so we can hear the other side of the story. And with that, I think I'm done. But have a wonderful day. Aloha.
Aloha to you, Rita. Thank you so very much for your call and your comments and your follow-up. Thank you for that very, very much. I will come back to the fellas for a response, and we'll do that in a moment. Must take care of radio business. We'll take a short break, return with more of the SHOPO Hour after this. I want to thank you for all your patience. But we're down to just about 4 or 5 minutes, if that, for this edition of the SHOPO 2 hours. We'll start next week. But in the meantime, thanking Rita for her call. I want to get the fellas' thoughts and start with you, Brother Mark.
Rita, thank you very much for calling. I have one word to say to you. Amen. I mean, thank you for your support. Thank you for, listening to the show and then following up on what we had brought up about the bail reform. And seeing actually what our politicians are doing. And you're right, we don't want this to be another San Francisco, but you know what? It's getting that way. And I've worked with Tina with the Chamber of Commerce, and yeah, it's very, very frustrating for these small store owners. There's a habitual property crime law on the books, and the prosecutor chooses to pick apart the law the way they see fit in charging these people. Follow the law, not how you perceive it. It's ridiculous. So, Rita, thank you very much for your call.
It is 7:56 in the morning, and we have time for a very brief call, and it is Dave in Waikiki. Just a few moments for Dave. Good morning. Welcome to the program. And once again, turning to Dave in Waikiki. Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. One part of the equation has been left out directly attributes to the high rate of crime and very high rates of arrests is the lack of prison space, which has gone on for 40, 50 years. Why don't we build a prison? That is the main reason, I think, none of these criminals are locked up for very long, and they don't care, and then they get a free trip to the mainland if they do get caught and incarcerated. Thank you.
Gentlemen, any thoughts?
I think, thank you for your call, sir. I think the caller makes a very logical comment. If you do bad things to good people, you need to be held accountable. And if that means you need to go away for a period of time behind bars to reflect on what you did and possibly get rehabilitated, if we don't have enough space, before we start putting the offenders through social programs and all this touchy-feely stuff, they need to be locked up. They need to be held accountable. And once we build that space for them to separate themselves from law-abiding society, then we can worry about rehabilitating them. The gentleman that called from Waikiki, he's spot on. If we need to build more space to house people, offenders, then that's what we do.
There was almost 30 years ago conversations about the privatization of our prisons. Then State Representative Quentin Kavananakoa was taking the lead as then House Minority Leader. I sat in on committee meetings to listen to the logic of the presentation. The privatization would have solved so many issues because the onus would have been on this private corporation. They would have to meet the demands and expectations, and that arrangement would have been very clean. However, it was denied. We got into this area of, well, we'll fly our prisoners to the mainland, which has turned out to be a complete, in my opinion, a complete disaster. But the bottom line, it is about where do you put people that do. And accountable, yes. Consequence is very, very important. Mark?
Here's my issue with that. Prosecutors prosecute the law. Judges judge it. They shouldn't be thinking about, where are we going to put this guy? That's not their job. Do your damn job. Give this guy a sentence and let the prison system figure it out. If we don't have the space, you send them to the mainland. Make the legislatures build a prison, right? Along with the privatization, I know Ige signed a bill not allowing it anymore. There's a law stating it, no privatization. So these guys got to get on board.
It is the end of yet again another great hour. I want to thank Bobby and Steve and Mark. And again, Bobby, I just want to thank you and Steve and Mark for coming together every Monday at this time.
Thank you, Rick. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to this hour every week, taking the calls and their comments and responding back. We know that the general community does support our men and women statewide.
And on that note, gentlemen, we'll see you next week. SHOPO Hour on News Radio 830 KHVH.